Thanks for your patience. We're going to start. We're going to do this. Thanks again for being here and for braving the weather. As I said, this is a roughly 90-minute presentation, roughly in two parts. I'm going to talk to some people on stage for a while. We're going to introduce the project, introduce the artist. She's here. She's not on stage yet. Her name's Ella. And go she's right here, in front row. And we'll go through some detail about what this thing is going to be, this mural. And then there's an audience participation part. That's where you come in. Ella, I'll leave the stage, and Ella will take over and sort of start a dialogue with you. And we're really hoping that you will be generative and offer feedback, and that will inform the final mural, what comes up in the room tonight. Another quick housekeeping thing. There are cameras suspended from the ceiling. You can see they're all pointed at the stage. They're not pointed at you. The stage will be recorded for purposes in future, so we can utilize the material in the future. During the Q&A and the audience participation, the cameras will be turned off. You will not be recorded. There's also a photographer here, but she's just going to shoot the stage. So our intention is not to record you. Very intentionally. So there it is. So part of this discussion, we recognize that this is for a Holocaust memorial. It's a mural for a Holocaust memorial. It's a sensitive subject at a sensitive time. We're going to go into some of the elements of this project and some of the thinking that went behind it. And we realize that due to the sensitivity of the subject, there might be some concerns from the community, and we want to talk about it. That's kind of what we're doing here. So we do. I have to say, we ask that you be respectful of the procedure, respectful of the artists and the people up on stage, and they are doing their best to do something what they hope will be extraordinary. That will be reflective of the community, that will have your imprint on it. It is a process, and this is part of the process. So, and also feel free to voice your concerns, because that's, again, why we're here. So, I will start talking about, I'm going to tell you who's on stage with me. This is Jane Golden. She's the head of Mural Arts Philadelphia, the longtime head of Mural Arts Philadelphia. She's been responsible for, not personally, but her organization that she runs is responsible for more than 4,000 murals that are currently in Philadelphia. She's a very busy lady.
Thank you.
And also Eszter Kutas, who's the head of the Holocaust Remembrance Foundation. The foundation created the Holocaust Memorial Plaza on the Parkway, which is where the mural is going to go. It's her baby. It's her project. Mm-hmm. And the two of them have partnered to bring it around. Yes? And who are you? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Peter Crimmins. I'm a reporter here at WHYY. I work in the newsroom. I'm an arts reporter. Sorry, thank you. I didn't tell you who I am. Who was that man jawing on stage? Yes. And I've done a couple stories over the past, I think, a year, or almost a year, since this project came afoot. This is actually a project that has been going on since 2021, I think. It's been a few years. Yeah. This has been a long process, and still ongoing. So I want to. So the mural is going at what is it? 17th and Parkway? Is that the corner?
Yeah.
17th and Parkway. Very prominent wall.
16th.
16th. Thank you. 16th and Parkway. It's overseeing the Holocaust Memorial, which it has the statue. There's a statue there, the memorial statue, erected in 1964. It's been there since 1964. The first statue in America to memorialize the Holocaust. Oh, here we go. Oh, there's a statue, 1964. Oh, nice. And then it was under Eszter's vision. It was converted into a plaza just in 2018. A few years ago, it had a major overhaul, and now it's a plaza with a lot of elements that make it a memorial. So that corner has been around as memorial for, I can't do the math, we're going on 80 years now. 60 years, I can't do math. 60 years now. Why are we doing this now? You wanted to bring a mural. You can kind of see it in the picture on the right. There's the wall where the mural is going to go. It's blank right now, of course. How come you wanted to introduce a mural into this project?
Yeah, so like you were saying, we started this partnership with Jane and others at Mural Arts in 2021, and we were responding to two realities. By then, over the past 8 years prior to that, anti-Semitism has been drastically rising in the United States and also globally, affecting our very city too. And that was one factor. And the second factor was that, Holocaust education was carried on the shoulders of the Holocaust survivor community in Philadelphia and really throughout the entire country. And we are now facing a time that they can no longer carry that weight. Very few of them are around anymore. So first we developed the site around the original monument to bring in all these artifacts and educational features to really increase public access and education. And really the idea is that the site, when you were seeing the picture from 1964, served as a site of mourning where Jewish people gathered to remember those who did not survive the Holocaust. It was a cemetery in place of a cemetery in many ways. It was a sacred place. And 50 years forward, our organization, the Philadelphia Holocaust Remembrance Foundation, got together to rethink what can we do with this place to increase public access and education. And we worked with WRT, many of them are here in our audience, to design a space that continues that remembrance and reflection, but also has new educational features. So to me, to think about adding a mural to the site is really the natural evolution of this place, in which we now need to be increasingly concerned about rising anti-Semitism and bigotry in our country. And the initial thinking was the wall is perfect for a mural. Jane will reflect on that in a minute. But really, how do we get new voices into the conversation about how do we fight anti-Semitism at this time? How do we continue the legacy of the Holocaust survivor community in educating about the Holocaust? So that was the initial thinking. How can we vision the involvement of public art in engaging in a deeper conversation?
Mm-hmm. Right. I don't know, Jane, I've talked to you many times over the years, and I know that you have favorite walls around the city. You move around the city and you have that wall.
Peter, you know me well.
And then her brain starts moving. It's like, I can put something there. And that's one of those spaces because it's such a prominent location. So I'm wondering what the ask was. When you started to hunt around for something to put on the wall, I'm wondering what the idea was. What did you ask the artist to do?
Well, I think just to step back, I think when you reached out to us, we were so excited because it's true. I love that site. I thought about that site when I was visiting people in city government. I would look down and look at that wall. But also, I grew up with grandparents who talked a lot about the Holocaust. They themselves were not survivors, but if you go back in my family, there were people that lost their lives. And so they felt very clearly haunted by the Holocaust. And as a child, it impacted me in ways, like I think back now and I think, my early drawings and paintings were sort of, like I feel like I picked up on that sense from them that life is precarious. And so I would sometimes walk through that site and just sit or think about the Holocaust, and just as I would be cutting through Center City. And then, so I was very honored when you called. One, of course, because of everything it means, and also as a wall hunter, I just love the site. So I had to add that, right? Of course, the wall. But it was such a massive responsibility that we really wanted to get it right. So we did an international search, and thank you, Todd Bressi, who's here tonight, who's an urban planner, for helping lead the way. We had a great stakeholder group. I mean, Esther, you've just been a joy to work with. It's like we took every step of the way. We've taken this so seriously. And when we thought about, I don't know if this is going to answer your question, but it's about the artist, like sort of what were we looking for? We were looking for someone who very specifically had connections to the Holocaust. We were looking for someone who could think about sight as well as the object of a wall. And that's something very different. We wanted someone who could understand and take on the weight of this issue. And we wanted someone who could open up themselves to community. And not every artist can do that. It's, you know, creating art is often a very private thing. And the fact that we have so many wonderful public artists in the city, I'm always in awe of them and their ability to be so generous and share. And I think that's what we were looking for. So in a sense, it was like a person who was like a quintessential multitasker is what we were looking for. And so we did the search, we narrowed it down, and in the end, we selected Ella.
Can I add to that
Sure.
we had 54 artists who applied, and that was probably the most uplifting experience. You know, that many people came forward and cared, and we read the most amazing stories of people who connect to this history personally. And of that, of those 54 extraordinarily talented, deep thinkers, emerged Ella, our finalist, because she brought just a very unique style to this process, and because we fell in love with how she portrayed her own connection to the Holocaust, and because we felt that the way that she approached the mural itself was so unique and so different from what we have seen in Holocaust education and in public art before, that it really spoke to us. So both how we got to Ella as well as the mural will speak for itself. I think it's one of those cases where the process is just as important as the final art piece. And
I think too, like just, thank you, Esther, it's a really good point. And I think also the fact that it's non-figurative is really important. In a way, what we want, and I would say this for almost every mural, every work of public art, not just a mural, but that you want there to be room for the viewer to develop their relationship with the work. And there's something like that's both like enigmatic and sweeping and very, someone once described the murals in the city, and I took this as such a compliment, as intimacy in public space. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really beautifully stated, and that's how I think I see this project.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's bring the artist up. Her name is Ella Ponizovsky Bergelson. She's right here, and she's coming today. Thank you for being here. And one of the things that Jane just told us is that when they were looking for an artist, they really wanted someone who had a personal connection to the Holocaust. I know your family's from Russia. You grew up in Israel. You now reside in Germany, in Berlin. Right. You've been around a lot. And I think that that experience, in part, informs the work that you do. Is that right?
Right. So, yeah, I present myself as a Russian-born Israeli who lives in Germany. And I think it's a very unique place to be positioned in, because in my life I already got to experience very different perspectives on Holocaust history. All of these countries, Israel, Germany, and Russia, all have a very connected history to World War II history and Holocaust history. So, and very also different positions to memory culture and perspectives. And because I lived in all of these three countries and still kind of moving around in between them, I think I can see the hidden sub-context in between what is said and what is not said. And I think it allows me a glimpse into what is still needs to be discussed and mentioned. And I think that's part of the reason why I was so interested in this project and part of the reason why I'm here today.
Right. If I understand right, you don't have a previous connection to Philadelphia, right? This is your first time having work here?
No, yeah,
Right,
yeah.
exactly. Right. And I think, yeah, you have slides. So there we go.
So yeah, so also you ask how is it connected to my creation, my diverse background, and basically I remember from a very young age trying to, I grew up in a bilingual home and in a city in Jerusalem which is very diverse. I was surrounded always with Hebrew, with Arabic, with Russian, with English and more. And I'm also a bit dyslexic. I'm more of a visual person, naturally declined visual person. And I always, as a young child, wondered why are all these letters are so different from one another, why one language is from right to left and the other from left to right. And this fascinated me. It all seemed to me like codes that I must decipher, and not only the meaning of the words, but also what is standing behind the visuals, what are the similarities, what are the differences. And from a very young age, I was working multilingually. Letters were for me visual forms of expression. So this is an example.
And what are we looking at here? Does this exist somewhere?
So this exists. It's part of, I'm not going to talk long about
Okay.
it, but this was published in an academic journal in Great Britain this year. In an essay that I wrote that's called Exodus of Language, which talks about how different power structures influence the visual of language typography.
Yeah.
How languages morph due to imperialism and so on. So this is it. But actually, I'm not the only migrant in my family, so I descend from, if it's okay that I move on, from a lineage of migrants. That's my great-grandfather, David Bergelson, very sweet-looking boy. He was born in 1884, which is kind of funny because I was born in 1984, exactly 100 years after. And this guy became a very famous writer, a Yiddish writer. And fleeing the pogroms in Kiev, their family and friends, this little baby behind Esther is my grandpa, this cutie. I looked exactly like him in his age. But this is them on the way from Ukraine to Berlin, where my grandpa grew up until the age of 14. So they were also moving around quite a lot. This is them in their home in Berlin in 1923, so 102 years ago. And because I said already, I live in Berlin today. When I moved to Berlin, I only then started discovering the Bergelson Berlin stories. And these changed my life. It's the first time that I started reading Bergelson literature is when I moved to Berlin. Because it came about, I was like in this big city, new city, I don't speak the language yet. I'm looking for a connection. And there I Google it, and then I find a book called Shadows of Berlin, which was written 100 years ago, but translated to completely contemporary English in a publishing house in San Francisco, and I order it on Amazon, and there I find his Berlin stories, and I was shocked because his Berlin was my Berlin. I expected some old-fashioned Yiddish old Berlin, but it was not. It was that multicultural, experimental hub that connects all this culture together. And that's how I created my first mural series in Berlin, which is called Among Refugees, named after one of his most prominent Berlin stories, and a series of 3 murals. This is the second. They're all site-specific, and when I say site-specific, I mean that every text in every mural is connected to the specific, both the contemporary use of the building and its historical meaning. This is also the approach we're going to take with this mural. It will be site-specific. So this specific building is a deportation station, the main deportation station in Berlin, from which tens of thousands of Jewish Berliners were deported to forced labor and extermination camps. And yeah, this mural is also multilingual. Each word is in a different language, and they all borrow sentences from the story among refugees. Here I employ Arabic, Yiddish, and German, which was a choice to mirror the contemporary migrant communities in which I hang out in Berlin today. And that's a different project, which was done it was done for the Venice Biennale in 2022, Art Biennale. And it's part of the Nomadic Yiddishland Pavilion, which is it's a collaborative project which is there to challenge the national division of the Biennale. In Biennale, the Venice Biennale, probably most of you know, is many different pavilions, which are, each country has a representation. In that year, America actually took the first place because it's also a competition. So, but basically our pavilion, we're challenging the national division of the pavilions. And my project, in collaboration with literature professor Ana Elena Torres from the University of Chicago, was an intervention into the German pavilion. As you can see, a very fascist Nazi-looking building. It was built during Hitler time, so it's the most actually fascist-looking building I ever saw, because in Venice everything is exaggerated to the national side. And our project, basically the medium is the message. It's an AR sculpture. It's visible and invisible. It's only visible if you tap into it. So it's called pseudo-territory, and it borrows a term that was coined by Baruch Rifkin, who's a New Yorker who's also Russian and Jewish, who lived in the 1920s. He was an anarchist when it was a real option as a political system. And he, not like in terms of like a sprayer in the street or something, but he was just, he really believed that what defines a nation is not geographic borders, rather a language and its literature. So what defines a nation and a culture, it's cross-global, basically. And this is his idea, and that's how our project behaves. It's multiple different languages who kind of morph and move. It's all animated. You can also tap into it through my website right now or after. And it can exist when you tap into it. If you tap out, it doesn't exist. It was created in interaction with Maria's Einhorn's work, deconstructing a structure, who basically that year, instead of putting something in the pavilion, which most artists do in the Biennale, she basically took the floor out, exposing empty fundaments, and it was her comment on what happened with the German culture, her very abstract comment, yeah, or very conceptual comment. So our invisible structure, or visible through your smartphone sculpture, was floating inside there and was also interactive with her work. And now I'm gonna stop.
So that's some of the work that you've done. I want to ask about what you were thinking for this stuff, for the new work that's going to be on the Parkway.
Right.
I realize that it doesn't, a final plan doesn't exist yet. Some preliminary drawings have been made, but we're not going to, it's very preliminary, not ready to be seen. And oh yeah, this is where it's going to go. This is the wall.
Right. That's
so what are you thinking for us?
I'm thinking a lot of things. And we can't possibly fit all of them in this time right now. But yeah, the main The main concept of this project is it focuses on themes of othering and displacement. And I'm going to break it down a little bit, and I'm going to explain what does it have to do with the Holocaust. Basically, when I'm saying othering, I refer, sorry for the heavy name dropping, but I refer to the person who coined this term is Jacques Derrida, he was a Mizrahi, Algerian, French Algerian, no one is one thing. Anyway, French Algerian philosopher of the 20th century. So basically, again, over 100 years ago, he was very renowned for his work, and also he coined the term othering. Othering basically means that cultures and nations, we define ourselves not by what we are, but by what we are not. So basically, simply put, I am who I am because I'm not them. And he was talking a lot about this. And maybe for us today it seems obvious, but he's the first who coined this term othering that we love to use. And we all can imagine how Nazi history and its result, the Holocaust, have to do with othering, basically defining your race as the inferior to others. You can only be inferior if there's someone which, you can only be superior, sorry, if there's someone who's inferior, right? And this is what is very important about Nazi history to learn and remember and discuss today. And displacement is a very important topic in my opinion, because it is one of the lasting and still very much alive today results of Holocaust history. And many of us, also especially, I don't want to say us, but America, many of you ended up here as a result of Holocaust history. And displacement of whole cultures and the domino effect of displacement is something that is still very present in our lives, in our political climate today. And it's something that we still grapple with, we still have wars about, and still needs to be largely discussed and mentioned and connected and related to that history.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
So this is, yeah, and yeah.
And so it sounds like, I hate to simplify, but the piece that you're thinking of is not figurative, as Jane would say. It's an abstract piece. So we're not looking at images of the Holocaust. We're not looking at images of horror on the Parkway. But what you're going for is sort of a little bit of what might have caused that trauma and what that trauma might have begotten. So we're not focusing in on what happened, but what preceded it and what came after it.
Right. I think we focus on all of it together as one history which proceeds to the future. It's a bridge between past and present. So it's not at all has to do with I mean, it's totally all about the Holocaust, but it's also about how it manifests in our lives today, because I think it's very important to not look at it as distant history, rather look at how it's still present in our lives today. And not only in Jewish life, but in everyone's life. And how still this history keeps changing the way we behave, we think, our fears, yeah. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not a figurative piece. It's got to be a piece which will be constructed with many different languages and many different pieces of text, which will be inspired by the community. So this is really important and really cool that we are planning something and have been. These guys were planning it way before I joined, but we have further steps of how to involve the community within it. So one of those steps is what we're doing here right now, and you all will get to express yourself later on within it. The second step would be forms that I will later explain, and that you will get to contribute something of yours into this process. And you're gonna also be, you or whoever wants in Philadelphia will get to also paint the piece together with me. So I basically will be functioning as a pipeline for voices that have to be heard in this moment in time right now. And this is what I prepare myself for, which is very new for me and very exciting for me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you haven't done much collaborative kind of.
Yes, but not like
community
that
collaborative work.
largely collaborative,
Yeah, right.
like with the whole city. This is that's new for me, and I think for us, Jane, right? Like there is something very complex about this.
Well, I would say yes, this is very complex. And I just wanted to say to everyone, I think that, as I referenced before, I think that there is a graciousness to artists when they open the door this way, because it's, doing work in public, you're very vulnerable generally and specifically with this project that is so delicate. And I think that the idea is that Ella is opening sort of herself up to ideas, but my sort of, I guess I have to say this, I said it last on Sunday, is that this doesn't mean that your idea gets replicated on the wall, literally, right? Because back in the day, 1,000 years ago, when I worked for the Anti-Graffiti Network, and we'd go to community meetings, and everybody would have an idea, and then we tried to put everyone's, I'm looking at Marsha Moss, who knew me back then. The work wasn't very good, because we put everyone's idea on the wall, and then people were like, content overload. I'm like, yes, absolutely, because we want to, of course, allow for the magic and genius and wonder of the artist to come through and sort of take all of this almost like a film editor and create something magnificent.
And Eszter, I want to ask you something, because you mentioned something before we were on stage to me about some of the preliminary reactions you've been getting from the community, from the Jewish community, about the wall, about the abstractness of it, of this project, and opening it up to more communities beyond the Jewish community. I mean, like the statue is very specific. It's about a very specific thing, and the mural is less so. Or it's broader, and you were hearing some concerns about that.
Yeah, of course. I think the Jewish community is facing an extraordinary, challenging time. So I think if you go around and tell the Jewish community that yes, it's going to be about the Holocaust, but also everybody else, then people are going to look at you like, why are you universalizing this experience? If you're diluting this history, you're at risk of really being to the point about this history. So I think I want to assure everybody that there will be no question when this mural is up that it stems from the history of the Holocaust. We can, Jewish people have been living for thousands of years in the diaspora, right? And so displacement to us and, long-standing history of discrimination is very, very familiar to the Jewish community. But why is it important to also involve other voices in the creation of this mural and create relatability? Well, first of all, the Jewish community is not the only community who has been historically marginalized, persecuted, and othered. And even during the Nazi persecution, while the Jews were certainly the primary target group of the Holocaust, they weren't the sole target group of the Holocaust. There were many others, gay men, people of Roma or Sinti background, and so forth. So, but then the other piece is that this site is, yes, it's going to continue to be serving the Jewish community, but when we have added all these artifacts and all these educational installations, we did that purposefully to open up the conversation and to make this place a place of education. And in order to do that properly, we need to have people care about this history who are not directly affected by this history. And the most practical way that we can do that is by relating our very difficult and challenging history to what they have experienced in their own life without losing the focus on educating on our own history. And this we have been doing for multiple years. The Philadelphia Holocaust Remembrance Foundation, and it is in fact effective, right? So I want to really say to the Jewish community here that we understand all the concerns that are currently present, but we feel very good about our focused mission on how to achieve our Holocaust education goals through this mural.
Right. And it occurs to me that the mural is not the memorial. The memorial is the whole site.
Yes.
And it will be in conversation with all the other elements. There are a lot.
Right.
There's a
That's
statue,
it.
though. There's stones over here with a lot of
Right.
information on them, and there's a lot of stuff you can see. There's a lot of things happening, and the mural will be in concert with all the other elements that are on the site.
I also want to say that how you keep something, like, it's very important to keep the Holocaust alive and relevant, and you do that by opening it up, right? So this becomes sort of this comprehensive site of great importance that sort of lives on. And also, I just want to mention that sometimes, like, often when we're doing projects, people feel sort of if they see a literal image of something, like that is really, that's sort of what they want. And I think what we learned early on is that when we worked in communities and people who didn't live in the communities felt that we should have more explicit imagery about what was going on in that community. And neighbors would say, well, why would we know what's going on. We actually are looking for something else, something uplifting, something different, something that's a departure, something that will get us to think about other things, something about aspiration. And that was there's so many interesting lessons from all these years of doing this work. And so I think this is an interesting merging of what we've observed along the way about how you can both open it up and hold it dear to your heart.
Right.
And also, if I can add to that also, which is very important, it's also very, for me as an outsider, it was very important to understand the nature of the city of Philadelphia and its history, and to find the intersection of Holocaust history with Philadelphia's history as a sanctuary for persecuted religious minorities, and as the birthplace of American democracy, so which is basically kind of a counterpoint to fascism and Nazism. So that's why also othering and displacement were themes that unite these two histories and put this place as a site-specific, this mural as a site-specific work in this place.
Yeah, right.
So I think we hope that this mural will answer all these complicated questions in a sufficiently good way.
Okay, all right. And Eszter mentioned this at the top, that this mural is coming to fruition at a time when anti-Semitic behavior in this country has gone up a lot in the last year and a half particularly, where there is still daily strife coming out of Israel and its environs. And this mural is supposed to be a forever mural. It's not about now, it's not about next year, it's not about whatever happens in the next 9 months. It's supposed to be here for a very long time. And yet our current situation is kind of informing it a bit.
Yeah. So, we were saying this before. So we started this exploration in 2021. Obviously, neither Jane nor I could anticipate the horrors of October 7th or the tragic war that followed. There were voices around us who asked us if we want to pause the project. And we felt really, really strongly that we need to continue. So anti-Semitism and bigotry, and in fact Islamophobia, is really drastically rising right now in our country. And all of us needs to be really concerned about that. So if anything, we can use this mural and this site that has served really as such a special place for generations, for dialogue, for reflecting on the enduring and universal lessons of the Holocaust. So I could not feel stronger why it's so apropos for our time. We do student tours at the site and teacher trainings at the site all the time. And it's using the sites, several different features that we really reach our educational goals. And I really believe that the mural will add to that, and it will add to the conversation of discrimination, othering, and displacement. Quite apropos topics for our times.
And I think for every time, unfortunately.
Yeah.
About the question of forever, I think humans were migrating since the dawn of days, and will keep moving. Humans, animals, plants. And I think this topic is universal. It connects all of us across time and space. And I think also, yeah.